All right, welcome everybody to this week's BSPU call. As always, really excited to kind of delve into this, and I hope I do a good job. I probably won't, but I'm going to do the very best I can to do a good job with the subject matter. I love Dr. Benjamin Hardy's work. I love his books. If you haven't read them, I highly, highly recommend that you do. Just recently, I received his latest book called The Science of Scaling. It actually isn't out yet, but you can get a copy of it if you want at scaling.com. Okay, I don't get anything for sending you there, but I just finished reading it. I love this book. This is going to be at least two parts. What we're going to talk about today is more of an overview of Be Your Future Self Now, because I feel like that's kind of the basis and foundation for the scaling stuff, which is more business related and business focused. Okay. So I know this is a little bit outside of, okay, how do we make more money as an author? But it's not. It's really, in some ways, a follow-up from last week because it's about getting our own minds right, our own goals right, and our own focus right. When we do that, then great things can happen with our businesses, with our books, with what our goals are. So let me spend a few minutes and talk to you about Be Your Future Self Now. Highly, highly recommend it. Highly recommend his work. This is a good one to start with. If you're interested, you can obviously find it on Amazon and then scaling.com for the science of scaling. I'm probably going to do a terrible job of this, but I'm going to do the best I can. Okay. So words of affirmation are always appreciated. But the idea is this. So pre-modern, and I don't even know if that's a word, but not modern psychological thinking, but more turn of the 20th century, think Freud, etc., had the model that our actions today in the present and what we do in the present and who we are in the present is really more about our past. Okay? It's the trauma that we've been through. It's our conditioning. It's our subconscious drives, right? And at that time, and honestly, even up until modern day, the thinking is that, our personalities are more fixed and shaped by our early life experiences. Okay. And so to understand someone else, or even to understand yourself, you have to look backwards. It's very interesting because the newest model, and the model that Dr. Benjamin Hardy and many others are turning to today in modern psychology, is that actually not that looking at our past is unnecessary or insufficient, but that actually looking to our future, having a future-driven psychology is much more powerful and effective. And in fact, it really is what drives human behavior. Modern psychological research is showing that far more of what we're driven by is our view of our future than our memory of the past. And so Dr. Hardy draws on positive psychology, goal theory, etc., to write this book and his other book. And so the idea is, rather than asking about someone else or about ourselves, well, what happened to us? Why are we this way? Or what happened to you? Why are you this way? The real thinking should be, where are you going? What future self are you focused on and that you have as a goal set before you? And it's very, very intriguing. In fact, in the beginning of the book, Dr. Hardy gives this story, this description of what happened one day when he was coming home from work. He worked a long day writing his book, and I don't need to tell you as authors how difficult that is and how challenging that is, but he spent all day writing. It was a long day. It was a 12-hour day, and he was on the way home, and he knew when he got home, he would very quickly be thrust into the husband and father life. Now, he has 6 children, many of them toddlers. And so he realized, okay, my kids are about to need and desire all of my attention. And yet I am frazzled, tired, mentally exhausted, emotionally exhausted, right? And so what he decided to do, again, using this kind of idea, the future self thinking, was he pulled over just a block or so away from his house, and he envisioned himself, he was 33 at the time of this writing, he envisioned himself 20 years into the future as a 53-year-old man. Now, as a 53-year-old husband and father, 20 years into the future, all the kids would have been out of the house, and many of the kids would have been gone for years and years, right? And so imagine, for those of you that are parents and have children, and maybe you're empty nesters now like I am, imagine that you at your age today, if your kids are out of the house, had an opportunity to drive up to your home and your kids be toddlers and welcome you at the door, and mom or dad or hug you, want your undivided attention, right? When you're in the midst of that every single day, wow, is that challenging, right? But if you think of yourself as that, in his case, 53-year-old whose kids were already out of the house, and how, as a 53-year-old, how much he would have loved to have a night where he could experience all the drama, all the excitement, even the mayhem of an evening with his 6 young children. Because as a 53-year-old, again, thinking of his future self, he's now an empty nester. It completely transformed his evening and his behavior with the children. He even shows a picture. He took a picture of him with his daughter because his youngest daughter met him at his car and immediately hugged him, and they had this incredible night. Now, look, I had 3 kids, and I know how difficult 3 kids were raising 3 children, right? He has 6. With 3 kids, and 3 boys in my case, there was always fighting, there was always arguing, there was always drama, there was always mayhem, there was always stuff going on. But if I could today go back to that for one day, oh my gosh, what I would give for the opportunity to experience all that over again. This is the idea of being your future self and looking back at your future self, your health today, the abilities that you have today, the things that maybe you take for granted on a daily basis, your future self would perhaps long for. And so this idea that we can actually shape our attitudes, our behaviors, our emotions, if we just focus on our future self and being our future self in the present, is a really powerful idea. So what I want to do is I want to take a little bit of time and I want to share these core frameworks that Dr. Hardy talks about in Be Your Future Self Now. We're not going to get to the science of scaling. We'll do that in kind of a part 2, which is more the business application of all of that. But much of the foundational elements are in Be Your Future Self Now, which again, I highly recommend. I'm reading it every day now as part of my kind of morning routine. So let me give you the core frameworks. There are kind of 7 core frameworks that Dr. Hardy talks about. Then he talks about there are 7 threats to the future self. There are 7 truths about your future self. And then there are 7 transformative steps to become your future self. Okay. I'm going to do my best to go through as much of this as I can. And by the way, I've created a document for you with all of this. So I'll share that document so you guys can have it. Obviously, you can take notes or whatever impacts you or whatever interests you, but the document I'll put in the Facebook group and is available for you as well. Okay, so what are the core frameworks? Well, framework number 1 is you need to define your future self. What does that mean? It means who you as a person really want to become. A lot of our goal setting are accomplishments, things that we want to see happen in our lives. It could be becoming a best-selling author, but then it could be using our book to get on stages or grow our business or hit our first six-figure year or six-figure month or six-figure week in our business. What he wants you to focus on about your future self is not so much that, but more about your mindset, your habits, your values, your environment. So, who do you want to become from a mindset perspective, from a habits perspective, from a values perspective? That's kind of the basis of it. Now, the goal stuff that I was talking about, we're going to get into more of that in the science of scaling, because he talks a lot about that, and it's it's mind-blowing stuff. It's great, great, great stuff. He wants you to ground your vision in your desires, okay? Not so much external expectations when you think about your future self. That's kind of number one core framework. Number two, understand what your biases are, okay? We have biases in our lives regarding what we feel like we can do, what we feel like we can't do, what expectations there are. Much of that, in fact, might be from our past. We need to understand what those biases are, because they can cause us to plateau. They can cause us to underestimate what our future can actually be. You probably can't even imagine the future that you could have unless you deal with these cognitive biases that might crush the opportunities in front of you. And so we want you to think through, what biases do I have? What failures did I go through in the past, or difficulties that I go through that might limit what I believe I can actually become? Number three, invest early and systematically, meaning that it's not so much about getting everything right. It's small, consistent actions. These things compound, and they create significant future results because of the compounding and because of them being repeated systematically. Clarify your priorities, eliminate noise. Talks a lot about in the science of scaling. I think it was Stephen Covey who said, if you have more than three priorities, you have none. And the idea is that really in your life, you should only have a couple of things that are most important to you and that are a priority to you. The rest is noise. And if you fill your life with noise, then really you're not going to have any significant priorities. And it's hard to be something special in the future without awesome priorities in your life. And then he talks a little bit about number five, this psychological time travel. That's like the example of the story that I gave you, right? Like, mentally project yourself into the future, which causes your present day choices to align with that vision, right? That's exactly what he described in the story. He's a 33-year-old with 6 children that are clamoring for his attention. He's physically exhausted. He's emotionally exhausted. He projected himself into the future as a 53-year-old and time traveled back to how excited he would be to see his children again at that age. And let me tell you something, as I read that, that was like a powerful moment for me. In fact, reading that was much of why I wanted to talk to you about that today, because I was like, yes, I mean, I wish I would have known that at the time. How many opportunities perhaps I let go by because I wasn't thinking quite clearly about my future self. Number 6, level up your belief. That can happen only when you deal with those cognitive biases. Transform emotionally from the needing to do something to wanting instead, to knowing that this is going to be your desired future. And then don't be afraid to ask really boldly about who it is that you want to be, and take imperfect action, right? Like, don't be afraid that your actions need to be perfect to align with your bold vision. They don't need to be perfect at all, okay? So those are the 7 kind of core ideas or frameworks that he talks about. There's a lot of examples that he gives and stories. Again, highly recommend that you read the book. 7 threats. I'm going to read through these, but then I'm going to cover a couple of them that I think stood out to me. He says there are 7 threats to your future self. Let me give you the 7. Lack of hope, number 1. Number 2, past-oriented thinking or reactive thinking. Number 3, environmental illness. Number 4, disconnection from your future self. Number 5, prioritizing the urgent over the important. Number 6, staying out of the arena or avoiding risk, being afraid. Number 7, complacency born from early success, right? Success can cause great complacency. So number 1 was powerful because he talked a great deal about Viktor Frankl. And of course, if you don't know who Viktor Frankl is, he was a psychotherapist or psychologist that was in a Nazi concentration camp. In fact, his wife and all of his family died in Nazi concentration camps, separated from him. And he was already a well-known psychologist and psychotherapist at that time. And in fact, he was one of the foremost thinkers of this idea of the future self as opposed to the reactive or past self. And a lot of that was really shaped and crystallized during his time in the concentration camp, which was Auschwitz. And he shares a lot about that in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. If you've not read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, I highly, highly recommend it. Very, very powerful. And what he discovered, and what Dr. Hardy talks a good deal about, is that the prisoners that died versus the prisoners in the concentration camps in the most harsh, brutal of circumstances, the ones that lived always maintained a sense of hope. And the ones that actually died was because they had given up. And so he talks a lot about the idea of the future self. And so this number 1 kind of key pitfall in the 7 threats of the future self is pretty powerful. And that's like the lack of hope. There could be lots of reasons. None of us, thank God, are in a concentration camp, but there could be lots of reasons in your own life that you don't have hope. It could be because of your age. It could be because of your financial position right now. It could be because of a relationship, or because you're a caregiver and there are challenges with that. There are lots of reasons in your life, from the standpoint of what's going on, your environment right now. Look, life is always trying to take away your hope. You have got to maintain this hope that you can be the thing that you want to be. And the minute that you think you're too old, or your health isn't good enough, or you have too many challenges, that is a threat to whatever future self you desire to become. So really, really powerful, the importance of maintaining hope. And of course, there's a great scripture in the Old Testament that says, without vision, the people perish. He quotes that as well, and talks about the idea of that. Hope is what drives us on, even when the circumstances are very dire and very difficult. So really loved that, and really personally spoke to me. Number 5, another one to mention, was prioritizing the urgent over the important. I think this is a big one for me. I think this can be a big one for a lot of us. And that is this idea, there's always stuff that's urgent in our life. There's always stuff that we have to do today. But here's the truth of the matter. You have got to prioritize the important things in your life. If you have wanted to write a book for a long, long time, and 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I mean, if you've ever been on one of my workshops, that's what people say, that they've been wanting to write a book for all their life. And yet the book is not done. Well, why can I, who barely got out of high school English, can write a book in 2 days that's been a bestseller for the entire year, but somebody far more intelligent and capable can't do it in 50 years? It's because they continue to prioritize urgent things over important things. So put the important things first, the big rocks in the jar first. And guess what? The urgent things will still take care of themselves. Basically, it's the idea of helping you to prioritize things in your life that are important over the things in your life that are just urgent, okay? Especially the ones that aren't leading you toward the future self that you desire. The second thing, 7 truths about your future self. Remember, he gives you 3 sevens, 7 threats, 7 truths, and then 7 transformative steps, which I'll go over those in a moment. But the 7 truths about your future self, which very, very positive, focused, which I really loved. And that is that the future drives the present. That is the truth. Your past does not drive the present. Don't think about that. Okay. Yes. Do you have some habits, and do you have some characteristics, and are you a certain way? Yes. But the reality is you can change all of that if you look to the future and who you want to become. Your future drives your present, okay? Embrace that. That is a truth. Number two, the future self will surprise you. Have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to accomplish a goal and you set out for it and you then did accomplish that goal, maybe faster and maybe in a greater way than you ever imagined? That's happened to me a number of times. I was surprised by the future self that I became. You should be and can be surprised by your future self. Number three, about the truths about your future self is vividness of image of your future self will accelerate your progress. So the more you know about who you want to be, what you want to accomplish, what you want to do, the more you can vividly see that, the faster you're going to make progress towards that. Number four, failure as the future self is greater and more important than your comfort now. Okay? It's a truth that you have to embrace. Yes, our brains are desiring comfort, right? We're looking for comfort. We're looking for safety. Our brain is doing that. But if you focus on the future self and ensure that you do not fail, then you have a greater priority, and you should have a greater priority on that than any comfort that you're experiencing right now. Number five, stay true to your future self. Rather than just stay true to yourself, start thinking, I want to stay true to my future self, right? Not just true to myself. Number six, spiritual beliefs can shape your future as well. Something that I believe is very, very important. Certainly, as you see people age, they start thinking more about their purpose in the world, more about making a difference in the world, more about serving. And a lot of that is based in spiritual beliefs. And then number seven, your future self can act like a Pied Piper, right? It literally can be that future self that you envision can lead you to the goals and the achievements and the person that you desire to become in the future. So love that part. That is the seven truths about your future self. And I know I'm covering a lot, which probably was a mistake. I knew that I would try to do too much. You know what I mean? It's like maybe I should have gone deeper and just taken each one of these things one at a time, but I just loved it so much. I wanted to give you as much as I could. So we'll see. Anyway, 7 transformative steps. Here are your steps to become your future self, and I'll spend a few extra minutes on each one of these. Number one, you have to clarify your future self, okay? The clearer you are on who you want to be, the faster and more powerfully it drives your today. It will drive your right now, okay? So what do? You get vivid about who you want to become in 3 to 10 years. Get vivid about it. Like, where do you want to live? What do you want your relationships to look like? What do you want your physical health to look like? Get vivid about who you want your future self to be in the next 3 years. Next, define your values, habits, and relationships, as well as the impact that you want to make. And then lastly, use this to clarify and align your daily choices, okay? Use this. Think about it. Think about who you want to be and then distill that down. If this is where I'm going and who I'm going to be, this is who future self is in 3 years, then what does that mean for my daily choices today? Distill it and start thinking through that. Number two, imagine your future self as a different person. I kind of like this. This is kind of cool because your future self is a very different person than who you are today. We always think, I think naturally, we think that, well, I'm just going to be a little bit older. No, I am so much different today than I was 10 years ago. You are so much different today than you were 10 years ago. 10 years from now, it's not going to be any different. You are going to be so different than you are today, 10 years into the future. So your future self is not who you are today. That future self is more evolved, smarter, understands life more. So stop assuming that your future self is just like a slightly better version of you. It's not. Your future self is radically different than you, except that your future self thinks differently, acts boldly, solves bigger problems. I do today. And this allows you to break free from like the status quo in your life today. Your future self, 3 years into the future, 10 years into the future, 20, that is a completely different person than you are today. And that person can be exactly who you want and envision that person to be. All right, number 3, connect with your future self emotionally. Remember, these are the 7 steps. Connect with your future self emotionally. This is kind of cool. The more emotionally connected you are to your future self, the more urgent and real it becomes. Use the example of that story that Dr. Hardy tells about connecting with his 53-year-old self, who is now an empty nester, and that 53-year-old self teleporting, time traveling back to a moment when he could have like something that he hasn't experienced in 20 years, that time with his children. There's like a real emotional connection right there. You can make that same kind of emotional connection today about your future self. It'll make you more grateful and more powerful in your daily actions today. Some examples of how to do that: journal from your future self's perspective. There's a famous story about Mr. Beast, the biggest YouTuber in the world. I don't know if you know this story, but very, very briefly, when he was in high school, I think he was 16 years old at the time, he made 3 or 4 videos talking to his future self. And the videos were something like, one video was 1 year out, and he had a pretty good following at that time. He was like a gamer and gaming on YouTube, like shooting video of him as a gamer, but he wanted to be a big YouTuber. And I think he had 50,000, or no, he had 5,000 followers or something like that, subscribers. And he said a year from now, and he's talking to himself in the video. He said a year from now, hey, future self, you're a year older, wow, we're graduating from high school. Are we going to go to college? We're supposed to go to college. Just very, very cool. And then he basically says, today, I hope you're still doing YouTube every day, future self, because I love it. I want to keep doing YouTube, and I want to have, I hope we have 15,000 subscribers. Anyway, he did this 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years. Maybe he did 1, 3, 5, and 10. I don't remember the details. However, if you know who Mr. Beast is, you know the story. I mean, Mr. Beast earns hundreds of millions of dollars a year. He is the, if not the largest account on YouTube. He is certainly one of them with, I don't know, 150 million subscribers, something like that. And this future perspective he had of himself, this emotional connection that he had, where he literally journaled and spoke. And by the way, what he did with the videos is he set those videos so that they would publish on the dates. Like he would say, this one's 1 year out, so he set it to publish a year out. The other one he set to publish 5 years out, etc. I think actually one comes out this year, if I'm not mistaken, which will be kind of interesting. So that's number 3, connect with your future self emotionally. Number 4, prioritize your identity over your behavior. This is kind of interesting. So don't just try to adopt new habits. Become the person who already has those habits. Okay. It's more of a mindset shift. Okay. Make decisions as your future self, not just for your future self. Okay. You see the difference there, the nuance there? This way, you're prioritizing your identity over just your actions. Yes, your actions need to be aligned in a certain regard, but then if you're prioritizing your identity, then it's not just about willpower. It's about, well, this is who I am, right? This is what I do. I'm making decisions as my future self, not for my future self, right? What would my future self do in this situation is the way that you need to think, because that prioritizes the identity over just the behavior, okay? Number 5, use forcing functions. Forcing functions. The idea is the power of constraints, okay? Constraints are powerful, goals are powerful, but only goals that have like deadlines and constraints on them. So use constraints, set hard deadlines for things. Commit publicly to things. I don't know if you've ever had a friend that had a fitness goal. I have a couple of them that recently had fitness goals, and they shared pictures of their chubby belly, right there on Facebook. I'm not suggesting that you do that, but they were committing publicly to getting into shape. And doggone if they didn't do it, right? They constrained themselves by making that public announcement of what they would do. Invest in yourself. Create high stakes scenarios that force you to act and force you to grow. Okay. The goal is to make it necessary for you to act like your future self today. Okay. That would be the best, right? That's a little like getting all the bad food out of the house when you've decided that you're going to finally start eating clean and taking care of your health. Force it. Create a constraint that makes you behave the way you need to behave. Number 6, automate and systematize success. This is all about your environment, right? Create structures and routines that support your identity. I've shared with you guys many times in the past about like how I live as far as my daily routine is. And I read these books now in the sauna. So like I read in the sauna every day. Yes, I sweat on the books. You don't want to borrow my books. Fine. I like to keep my books. But the reality is like I read a couple of different times in the morning and I go in, so I work out, I go in the sauna every single day that I'm not golfing. If I'm golfing, then I don't go in the sauna. I don't work out. And I get bored, I'm fidgety, so I have to read. And you can't bring your electronic devices in. It's too hot, right? It's too sweaty. And so I bring my books in and I read. That's my time. That is my environment. That's my structure. That is my routine. I do it every single day unless I'm golfing, and that's my exercise or enjoyment for the day. So, like you can do things, set recurring meetings on your calendar if you pay attention to your calendar. Schedule creative times, like if you're trying to save for retirement or the future, then set it up to auto draft out of your bank account every month, right? Like systematize these things so it leads you to success. And then number 7, and finally, is ask boldly and act courageously. So the idea is, and this is something that you've probably heard many times in goal setting, but I like the way he talks about it, is your future self is on the other side of fear. The way I've heard it in the past said is everything you want is on the other side of fear. In the same way, who you want to be is on the other side of something that you're afraid of, something that's uncomfortable, something that you maybe need to be willing to ask for that you want, right? And something that maybe you're not good at, or maybe is going to require like a real honing of your talents and your gifts. But that's okay. You keep taking imperfect action along the way. You correct along the way. And from that, you gain confidence. Confidence comes from you committing that you're going to act boldly, you're going to ask courageously, you're going to step outside of your comfort zone and know that everything that you want, your future self, is on the other side of fear. Okay? So lots that I shared, lots that I talked about. I'm sorry that I kind of gave you all of this. I tried to give you a summation of the entire book. That was probably stupid. But, I do stupid stuff sometimes. So I hope you got some good stuff out of it. Thanks so much, you guys. Have an awesome day. Bye.